Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And this time I was made to watch Blue Crush.
It's the 2002 movie that, among other things, reminds me to be nice to hotel staff and don't leave a mess for them to clean up.
Yeah.
Among other things. But yeah, just get that out of the way. Treat your hotel workers better. Don't leave piles of vomit for them or condoms.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. The end.
The end.
Yeah. This is the story of three girls, I don't know, young, early 20s, something, living in Hawaii, and their hotel housekeepers to pay the bills, but what they really want to do is surf. And one of them is Anne Marie Chadwick, played by Kate Bosworth, who was one of the, bland, blonde actresses of the early aughts.
Yes.
I think she's still acting, but they had a step and repeat with actresses like this back then. Very big on like the WB at the time.
Yeah, and like some of them set themselves apart. Like I just, not even blonde. I just remember like a lot of young, athletically built young women, two of which are in this movie.
Yeah.
Who, you know, like I would put like early Kate Beckinsale in that category of just like these just sort of like very specific type and yeah, just not that interesting. And some of them got more interesting as their careers went on. Some of them didn't. There
was a period where Neutrogena, the face wash people, had a long series of spokes actresses, and they all were just so incredibly bland. Like if you pick the most boring character on the most boring show on the WB, she was going to be a spokes face wash person for Neutrogena. And I don't remember if Kate Bosworth was one of them, but like there was, it was a thing. Anyway, sorry, back to this. Anne Marie is apparently the best surfer ever. But has been scared off of competitive surfing because she had a bad accident several years ago. And so she's out of the game. So this is feeling a little bit like Rocky, actually. I haven't seen Rocky, but
I was going to say, I don't think you've seen Rocky.
I
will say that the Rocky comparisons do pan out, but not that.
Okay.
Rocky comparison. Okay. Rocky is not a boxer who has been scared off of boxing.
Well, we've seen this before in some sports movie. I don't know. This is not an original thing.
Yeah, there are those sports movies where it's like, you know, oh, he's got the rotator cuff surgery and he's afraid to put it all behind the pass or whatever. You know, like there's always those sports movies.
Or
like,
it's a little bit like The Natural has a little bit of that. Has, you know, coming back from some obstacle and, you know, and what's weird, though, is she kind of, like, from the beginning of the movie, she's set on doing this, but then she's derailed by a romance, and then she's back. And I was like, if you wanted it to be this overcoming self-doubt, that arc needed to be different. But
yeah, there's like a 30-minute version of this movie that just starts at the beginning and forgets all the romance crap, and it's just like, she wanted to do it, and
she worked really hard.
She kind of did,
and she did. Yeah. Well, I've said this about several movies that we've watched for this podcast. It's a rom-com where I don't really care about the romance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The romance,
because it's completely so much less interesting than the rest of the story. And in this case, sorry, I already bagged on Kate Bosworth. Now I'm going to bag on the romantic lead here. He's just so dull.
Oh, yeah.
He's, well, first of all, the actor's name is Matthew Davis and his character's name is Matt, which is kind of a red flag.
Yeah.
He's played, the actor also was Warner in Legally Blonde, which is not his fault. That, you know, I shouldn't blame this character for that character, but I'm gonna, because Warner sucked. And so he brings some of that sucking over to this role. He's just, I don't know. He's
and he's just so like, he's just one of those, like, he is such a like 2002 ass guy. Like,
yes,
you know, this isn't a reference for you, but like he's a Nathan Drake ass dude.
Definitely not
like,
a reference for me.
The guy from Uncharted. He's got that hair. He's got that like bouffant kind of, it's like a pompadour, but then they did the spiky bangs in the front.
Yeah.
That are poofed out, which I do the poofed
I was
out
going to
bangs a
say
little bit.
you can't rag on
but
the
I
bangs,
but I don't have the height that he has, right? Like he has this like, you know, substantial height.
He has
to the
very
hair.
expensive hair products.
Yeah, and it's just, and he's just,
that work.
he's got that look. Like it just seriously, like Google Nathan Drake after this and tell me that he's not the spitting image of this guy.
The other person that he kind of looks like is Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not also like Tom Brady is a good looking dude, but and of course I'm saying this in 2023. I don't know how we felt about Tom Brady in 2002, but I don't consider being like Tom Brady a pro, except for athletically. And sure, he's attractive, but you know, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, we have this little romance with Matt, who is a football player there for the Pro Bowl, and he's with all of his teammates. So it's, you know, he's in town for only a short time, and he's going to have a romance with a local. And is it real, or is it just a fling, or blah, 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 blah. And then
we won't do a whole lot to develop that mystery one way or the other.
And of her two friends, one of them is Michelle Rodriguez, who I got to say, like, I don't know what she's doing now, but she just brings so much kind of, you could call it energy, you could call it baggage to any role that she plays. Like she's just sort of simmering with tension and irritation all the time.
Oh yeah, no, she's doing that exact same thing. She was most recently in the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Was she the same?
Where she does that, like every line is spoken through gritted teeth.
Yeah.
You know, just and just low monotone. Like she is very good at what she does, and I think that she's really like had a spectacular career, but like she just has one particular type, and she plays it so well. Like she plays a barbarian type character in Dungeons, and she's just, you know. And the funniest thing about that movie is she's married to. I'm going to say it's like a halfling who is played by Bradley Cooper, and it's hilarious.
Okay, wow.
He's only in the movie for like 5 minutes.
I don't see that relationship working out at all.
Well, in fact, it was not in the movie. They were in the process of being separated.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's just, she is just so good at doing exactly what, you know, it's like today if you're casting that, you would say, I need a Michelle Rodriguez type, and like she might be available.
Around. She's still doing
around.
the same thing.
She's still doing that exact same thing, and like just doing it so well.
Well, after a while though, you wonder, like, is that actually acting, or is that just she's just in a really bad mood all the time, and that's how she acts.
Oh no, I wouldn't put it past her.
Yeah,
and I think some of the greatest actors we've ever known weren't acting. So
that's true. Fair.
They were just being themselves for the whole movie.
That's fair. And their third roommate, the character's name is Lena, and the actress's name I cannot pronounce. It's Sanoa, I think, Lake, who apparently is a professional surfer. Which I don't think they really use that to much advantage, or
Not
maybe
for her, no.
Maybe it was just like they needed her surfing in the background, and they were like, okay, we don't need a stunt double for this. I don't know, but
I would be curious to know if she may have doubled Bosworth.
I looked it up. She didn't. One of the other pro surfers was the double for Bosworth, and then for some of the scenes they had a male surfer. They shaved his legs and they put him in a bikini and all this other stuff, and then they just pasted her face in.
Oh yeah, I don't want to derail this too much, but the face replacement in this movie is horrible.
Oh really?
Distractingly so.
Okay, well, I thought it was distracting with when they did that in I, Tonya with Margot Robbie.
That's 1,000 times better.
Well, right, I would think. Okay, it wasn't like
it's so like
I couldn't see like seams on the face or anything.
It was horrible.
Oh really? Okay.
It was, so there's this infamous scene in Jurassic Park where the young girl Lex she falls through a ceiling tile, and and it's her stunt double, obviously, and this is like 1993, remember, and the stunt double accidentally looks up, and so they had to put the stunt for like 5 frames of the movie, they had to paste over her face with 1993 technology.
Oh dear. Yeah.
And it looks, you would not know it. It's great. It's quick. It's 10 years later.
Yeah.
This stuff is so much worse. And I will give them, it's worse because they need to track motion. Every time they do a face replacement in this, the character is moving, and it's really hard to do it would have been really hard to do as someone who was like dabbling in 3D and really slightly into like film editing and stuff back in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like this would have been incredibly difficult to do and like is probably for the time really well done, but it stands out so badly.
Oh,
it really took me out of it. Totally.
Okay. Because I was watching her surfing scenes and assuming like that's not really her, but I didn't see the seams on the thing. But
it wasn't so much the seams as in literal seams. It was the seams as in being able to see, how the sausage is made. Kind of not how the sausage is made. But yeah, being able to see like, oh, clearly that's and being able to call it out every time.
Well. And you mentioned there's movement and all the things. Like this surf footage is, I mean, to me, a person who knows nothing about surfing and also nothing about filmmaking, it's amazing.
Oh yeah,
there's lots of underwater shots, and there's lots of people getting tossed around in the waves, and there's this terrifying sequence where Anne Marie has been on a board and she fell off, and she finally gets to the surface and she gets her head above water, and immediately a wave is coming down, and I mean, like, and it's terrifying, and it's really well done. And I know nothing about surfing, but you see the thing that they're referring to when they talk about pipe, where the wave comes around and it makes this like tube that you can go through, and it's stuff that I would not know about without this. It's all very cool.
All of the water stuff, all the wave stuff is beautiful. Like the sound design around the waves, the water is all great. They resisted the urge, and I think this is a Point Break thing. They resisted the urge to sneak an animal roar into the wave, which I commend them for.
What?
Well, when you're making a wave kind of like an antagonist in your movie, there is, anytime you're making nature an antagonist, like the Twister in the tornado in Twister roars like an animal at times.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it's Point Break where they have the waves like doing like a lion like roar roar kind of thing. But all the sound design is great. Yeah, the inside the wave stuff, especially when they put the hand out, they touch the inside of the pipe. When they have the inside the wave shot of the hand touching, and you're just seeing it from inside the wave. Oh, it's beautiful. Like, this is a movie where I don't care about anything that happens in it,
right?
But I would watch it again just to see all of that stuff, like the care with which they shot all of the ocean stuff. It makes it feel so powerful. It makes you really feel, so when the danger does finally present itself, like when there's actually some real challenge for the character to overcome, like you really do feel it because they've sold how powerful the water is. And they do that. They keep doing that cut back to her remembering when she hit her head on the coral, and every time they do it, you jumped.
And I've seen this movie like 4 times.
Yeah, because
so I knew it was coming.
It's just like she hits the water, and then they cut to that scene, and it's like, whack, quack. Every time. But yeah, it's just beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of hitting your head on things, early on in the movie, the girls get to the beach, and they're about to get in the water, and they see some guy who's coming out who's clearly hit his head, and he's got like a little blob of flesh hanging off above his elbow. That was a real person. Like, that was spontaneous. That was not he had actually come out, and they filmed him, and they're like, please can we put you in the movie? So.
Yeah, anytime you see somebody who is busted open or cut open, and the like subdermal fat is sticking out of the wound, like, it's just grotesque.
Yeah. I gotta say, I never really wanted to surf, and now I especially don't after seeing this. My only experience with really the power of water is the water park near our house. I take our kid there frequently in the summer, and he's old enough that I just like sit there and let him do whatever. And then he comes back. He's like, I'm 13. I'm too cool for this. Let's go home. But when he was younger, I would go in the things with him. And there was this part of it where this bucket would fill up. And I don't know how big it was. I mean, we're talking like hundreds and hundreds of gallons. It would fill up, and then it would tip over. And I, at one point, was standing under it, and I didn't know that I was. And it dumps all this water hits me like right in the shoulders and upper back. And I felt fine that day. And then the next day I woke up, and oh my God, all my muscles were screaming, and I was sore for like a week. And that's just the weight of water hitting you. That's not any of the other stuff. So like, it took a water park to give me respect for the power that water can do. Like, massive props to anybody who does this and doesn't die, because I would, no, not happening for me. But interesting, yeah. So the guy at the beginning, real person, lots of real surfers in this.
Oh yeah.
And you can, I mean, they're playing themselves. At the end, there's this competition, and there's a lot of real surfers competing. And we've noticed a couple of other movies that we've talked about. Vertical Limit is one I know. That was about mountain climbers, and they bring in real mountain climbers to play roles. And some of them are good actors, and some are really not.
Yeah.
And this, I feel like the one surfer who has the most lines, I feel like she acquits herself pretty well. I mean, like,
Which
it's
one?
the one who helps her
At the end.
Yeah. Who's like, let's. What she does is she's like, okay, she talks her through a competition and is like, hey, let's go over here and get you a good wave, which I don't know if was realistic. But at the point, like, she's clearly won. She just wants Anne Marie to like do her best. And
it's like, it's the most anticlimactic sort of thing. Like you were talking about Rocky, and that's when I started to kind of get Rocky vibes, because I was like, okay, she's not going to win.
Right.
Like, okay, cool. So like Rocky vibes. But like Apollo Creed was not in the ring going, now uppercut.
Right.
Now, jab, uppercut now.
Yeah.
I want you to almost take me out.
Right.
I'm going to stay down till 9. And then, it wasn't like he wasn't pulling him along. Rocky was succeeding despite his,
that's fair. Yeah.
And the spoilers for Rocky. Rocky doesn't win the first movie. That's what I
thought.
No,
right?
I'm saying to the audience, spoilers for Rocky.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think it was because at that point, the other, and I forget her name, it's not Kelly, but it's close. She's done several waves, and she's done so well. Like, she knows she's winning. So I think this is her being gracious and like, okay, little one.
I guess it's not a best single run. It's a culmination in the time, within the time limit.
Yeah. So she knows she's advancing, and Anne Marie is just for like,
she's trying to like give her
credit,
give her something, because they also say that her competitor is Hawaiian, too. So they're both Hawaiian, and they're both so they're like, hey, solidarity.
At a certain point, Anne Marie finishes her wave, and she does great. Like, she scores a perfect 10 opposed to everything else, which is not enough to make her win, but still she does really well. And there's lots of applause and photo, blah, blah, blah. And one of the photographers is like, she knows she lost, right? Which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Interesting that, so you point out, so the other surfer is Hawaiian, or at least lives in Hawaii. I've currently 2023, I think there's a lot of discourse about how we talk about people who live in Hawaii versus native Hawaiians.
Well, right. Well, yeah, so, there's people who live in Hawaii.
Yeah.
There are non-indigenous Hawaiians who are born in Hawaii, therefore still native Hawaiians.
I think
there are indigenous native Hawaiians.
We're not supposed to call them native Hawaiians. They're
right. No, I'm saying like just in the broadest term of the, like,
right.
If you're born in a place, you're of that place. You may not be, we could have moved to Brazil and had our son, and he would still be from Brazil. He wouldn't be Brazilian.
Right.
But, in that sense, in the traditional sense, but he would still be from. So yeah, it's a complicated.
Yeah. There's these shades of things. And I think it's and I don't know, like, if you are a white person or a non-indigenous person of any race who's not indigenous, who lives in Hawaii, and maybe your family has been there for generations, at what point do you get to say, I'm really from here? I don't know. It's a whole lot of, and right now when we're recording this, the Maui wildfire is not long ago. And so there's all this discourse about what role do non-natives have in Hawaii, and should they be living there? And there's a lot of push-pull about should tourists come, and it's a whole lot of other
And like me personally, I'm fully on board with native Hawaiians wanting non Polynesian, I guess, Hawaiians out of their country, and their country out of the United States. Like, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is cool.
Yeah. I got to say, like, Hawaii is a very long plane ride. It was not really on my bucket list to go to. And hearing that Hawaiian natives don't want tourists to come, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Well, not a hard sell.
It's kind of gross, right? Like, you see these, like, just here, like, so they're at a high-end hotel. So you have a bunch of native Hawaiians who are forced to do these sort of pantomimes for the white man
Yeah.
at this expensive hotel.
It's a hula demonstration.
Yeah, wear the coconut bra and the grass skirt and
Yeah.
all of that stuff, and it's not like it's a small island. There's not a lot of industry there. Like
Yeah.
tourism is the industry. Like they basically just have to prostitute their culture in order to keep themselves sustained. And like it's
Yeah.
kind of gross.
Well, yeah, and I don't know about hula. How sacred is it? I mean, is it just like, you're doing the polka? Is it just a fun dance, or is it have a little more specialness to it? I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know which would be worse. I don't know if it would be worse if it was sacred and they were being forced to exploit it, or if it's not sacred and they're being forced to act like it is.
I think the fact that one of the other football players, who is really just comic relief for the whole thing, including the fact that he gets yelled at for leaving a used condom on the hotel floor. That's how we meet him. He's up there in his big belly and a grass skirt and a coconut bra. Like, it's whether this is a sacred thing or just a regular thing, like, he's not respectful of it at all. He's there to have fun, and he's not being malicious, but it was all kind of gross.
The subtext is that they brought him up there to do that. Like,
well, yeah. So there's a little bit of internalized,
and that's why I mean, like, that it's even, it's even worse, because like this is just, it's the thing we got to do. Yeah. To, like, imagine if you had to put on some kind of traditional Irish garb and do Irish dancing, like, granted, that's not technically your culture. You're not directly
more like I had to dress up like a leprechaun and say, "Oh gosh, and pagoda, these corned beef and cabbage are really," whatever.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what I'm like, depending on which it is. Is it a leprechaun or is it Irish dancing? Yeah. One of those things is authentic and the other one is not as much.
Leprechauns are real.
I know. You
don't mess with them. That's what I object to, is don't make fun of them, because they will fuck you up.
Where the gold at?
Right.
Where the gold at?
They will come and say, "Oh, I'm the leprechaun," and slash your face off.
I'm the leprechaun. Then you say that, I can't not think of the scene from Wayne's World when Wayne is taunting Garth.
Yeah.
Garth, I'm the leprechaun. Where's my gold, Garth?
I also, speaking of, side note, making fun of Irish things, every so often there'll be a store that has they sell lingerie, and around St. Patrick's Day they'll have an Erin Go Bra and panty sale.
Okay.
Erin Go Bra means Ireland forever.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to bang my head against a wall whenever I see that. Okay, anyway,
yes. Solidarity with the native Hawaiian people.
You don't want us to come? We won't come. Yeah, no, it's an expensive vacation and a long plane ride, and I'm good.
We had some friends do it several years ago as a timeshare thing, and there was, and they came back and said it was great and everything. And there was a moment where I was like, maybe one day. And then when you really start to dig and you start to see how actual Hawaiian people feel about it, like, probably never.
I feel like clearly they need tourist dollars, especially now, but I feel like there are people whose plane rides will not emit quite as much carbon as ours.
Sure.
Like, people can go from California, but not here.
And it's an interesting conundrum, right?
Yeah.
They don't want you to come, but they need you to come. So it's like,
Well, and I think there's, like, right now, after the wildfires, there's kind of a push-pull of messaging. Like, people who are more activists are saying, nope, don't come. And people who own hotels are like, okay, we get it, but yes, come now, because we need the, so.
Anyway, we're not going to solve that here.
No, we're not. So but what I was getting to is, I think it's interesting that those two surfers right at the end, Anne Marie and Kelly, what's her face, are both, they live in Hawaii, but as the people who were shown to do really well in surfing, not people of color. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who invented surfing. Was it Hawaiians? I don't know.
No idea.
That plus the fact that the love interest is not a person of color, and all the people of color here are in the background. I'm like, ugh. I feel like if you made this today, that would not be the case.
Oh, sure,
I would be more interested in, I think, like, if the Lena character were the main character, and maybe, like, her family's been in Hawaii for a long time and they've always been surfers, and she's got this, so it's a bit of a generational legacy, but then she loses her confidence, et cetera, et cetera. That minus the romance, I would be much more interested in it. But,
sure. Oh yeah.
when they do Blue Crush 3, maybe that can be, because they already did make 2.
I saw that there was a 2. I just briefly looked.
No relation to this. It's surfing in South Africa, which isn't that where the end of
Californian.
Isn't that where the end of Point Break is in South Africa? No, that's Australia.
Yeah, I know there is like good surfing there. One of the big movies might be somewhere in Africa. I'm not sure. I can't keep up with them. There's like a handful of surfing movies.
Yeah.
I think Paul Walker did one at one point.
Maybe. I don't know.
Surfing movies were just a thing you did from like 95 to like 2006 or something. Surfing movies and movies that had skateboarding in it and stuff. Like it was huge.
Yeah. And then all that energy got channeled into Fast and Furious.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, interestingly, speaking of Fast and Furious, so this movie is loosely based on a magazine article written by Susan, I don't know if it's Orlean or Orlean but anyway, Susan, about, it's called, I think, The Surf Girls of Maui or something like that. And it's a nonfiction piece that was taken and adapted into this, which I always think is really interesting when they take nonfiction articles or books or whatever and turn them into pieces of fiction. Like Mean Girls was that way. Adaptation was also based by a piece by the same author. The not nearly as well done, but What to Expect When You're Expecting was the same kind of way. I mean, like it's based on an advice book about pregnancy, and that, that's a little bit different. But like, I think Mean Girls is probably one of the better examples of this. It's really interesting how you can create characters to illustrate concepts in the book. However, originally the article and the original vision for this movie was a whole lot more about female friendship and sticking together, and not so much, I don't think so much the competition, and definitely not the romance. The original vision for it was that the Anne Marie character was going to be, she wanted to leave the island to do something. I don't know what. I don't know if that's leave, I think Oahu is where they are. Leave Oahu to go in another part of Hawaii to go to the mainland. But regardless, it was kind of I think sort of a coming of age of, outgrowing your childhood pursuits and, blah, 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 blah. And that would have been, what a great movie to see. But they wanted a little bit more of a Fast and Furious vibe to it. So we get this. So I'm going to mourn the movie that we did not get.
Yeah.
Because that would have been great.
Yeah. This movie seems confused like that. It seems like it was setting out to do, it started out going in one direction and then took a hard turn. Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Sure.
The visuals of the surfing, and then just sort of the montages where the quote training montage. At a certain point, Anne Marie and her friends get a gig coaching Matt and his fellow football players, or teaching them how to surf. Yeah. And it's really kind of heartbreaking. Originally, he says to, I think because he thinks she's cute, he's like, "Do you teach surfing?" And they say, "How much?" He says, "I don't know. How much do you charge?" And they're like, $20 an hour? And he says, 20, because this is really low. And they think that's too high. And they're like, 10? He says, "No, the hotel charges 150. Yeah, I'll give you that." And then he pays Anne Marie the full amount for the week and then promptly sleeps with her. And I'm just like, ew, that's gross. Both of you should know that's not okay. One or the other.
It's not immediate.
They would have, were they not interrupted by this. Well, and also that's weird. Like he gets this phone call and he's like, "Oh, hey, sweetheart. Yeah, okay. Love you. Bye." And she's like, "Oh, that's your wife. I got to go." "Oh, no, it's my niece." Okay, then why are we... And
here's a picture
weird.
That could just be from the JCPenney catalog of a little girl.
Yeah, like I tell this to all the girls. That's why I came up with it so quickly. Like it's just like, why bring that up if you're going to knock it down right away?
Right,
weird.
Yeah. It's a red herring that's like brought up and immediately dismissed. And then there's more of that later. Like there's... Yeah, like the relationship stuff doesn't get enough time to matter.
Yeah.
And it takes time away from the more interesting stuff.
Yes.
Which is like the dynamic between the three roommate surfer ladies.
And then there's this thing where all the other football players have, they've brought women
trophy
along.
Wives.
Yeah. Well, and they're all in a very early aughts kind of way, big hair, sparkly, skimpy dresses and blah, blah.
Yeah. Housewives of the NFL kind of thing.
And they clearly, I mean, like the one that we meet at first, she's all pissed that, well, first of all, she walks in and if she'd been, 45 seconds earlier, she would have caught all the maids trying on her clothes, which I'd be pissed about that. But regardless, she's like, I meant for you to take those to be dry cleaned, which is again, treat your hotel staff better. Don't expect them to do that shit. And then they're showing off their jewelry, and then Anne-Marie hears them making fun of her dress and this and that, and like, oh, Matt loves to go slumming and da-da-da. And she gets all mad, but then she's like, I know what I am. I'm a girl you meet on vacation. Okay, then what?
Why were you mad?
What? And then it turns into this, I don't know what I want. I want to do well surfing. And he's like, okay, do that. But also like, but that has nothing to do with him. I don't get it. It's all...
Yeah,
it's muddled.
It's just all, he's too good to be true. I mean, it's very like Prince sweeps the literally maid off her feet kind of now, and presumably now she's going off to a life luxury as his wife, probably.
Yeah. Well, and so from the beginning, we're shown they're living a very hand-to-mouth existence. It's the three of them and Anne-Marie's younger sister, who's 14, I think, all living in essentially a shack and being, paycheck to paycheck would be putting it mildly. At one point, she says, I'd like to be able to pay the electric bill, the phone bill, and the rent all in the same month.
Yeah.
And they're scraping together money for breakfast at the gas station and all this other stuff.
That's why you're poor. Don't pay $17 for gas station breakfast.
Yeah.
That is just junk food. Like, I get it. I as someone who grew up poor, I understand food deserts, and I understand, why people eat bad food and that makes them unhealthy, and it's a cycle and all these different things. And, you can't get affordable, good, fresh food. Then that's why you spent, but still, like,
well, there's an interlude that I had forgotten about. Like, they get their stuff and they go to the counter to pay, and she's like, "Oh, $17." And they're like, "What do you mean? It's not the something rate." I don't know what it was. She says, "Oh no, because this isn't produce. It doesn't qualify for whatever." So I don't know if they have
some kind of EBT
or something like that. And one girl's like, "Well, this has corn syrup. That's a vegetable." So they know.
But also, at your house, you have Crisco, very prominently displayed in the background of their kitchen is a tub of Crisco. Like, you could be baking something with that. Make a flour and butter, or flour and Crisco and some water. Like, you're not that far off a biscuit here.
Well, I think so. That plus, so there's a scene. So they get up early and they surf every morning, and then they take Penny to school, and the main three go to work.
They ask a hobo how the waves are.
Yeah.
A guy who just sleeps in a sleeping bag on the beach.
Well, it's this it's kind of at one point they call it, coconut telegraph or something.
Coconut cellular, coconut wireless.
That's it. Like, which is the way gossip is passed around. But it's it's very charming. Like, she's the way that they talk about this stuff. But they drop Penny off at school, and she's late again. And the principal comes out and, reads Anne-Marie the riot act. And, we get some exposition that her mother is taken off to Vegas with the latest boyfriend and just left Anne-Marie and Penny there, and Anne-Marie is like, I'm doing the best I can, which always irritates me because I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah, you're clearly not.
Because, like, I get that the best you can would be making sacrifices, and that would suck. But don't pretend that this is the best you could do. Like, yeah, you're in your early 20s, and it sucks to have to give up early morning surfing. But that would be the best you can do. Like, I'm annoyed by that when people are like, I'm not saying you have to give it up, but be clear that you could.
I don't know if it's maybe this sort of like millennial thing of like being told that you can accomplish your dreams and then getting into your early 20s and realizing like,
oh no, I can't.
If you really wanted to live, if you really want to accomplish your dreams, then you have to potentially shirk some of your responsibilities. Mm-hmm. So she's doing her best to balance her responsibilities to this kid that isn't hers, but is her, her sister, and her following her dreams, so it's I don't know if it's this just weird kind of, because we are like right on the edge of being millennials, but we're
the principal in that situation. We are that age.
No, 100%. But like our generation was like the generation that was raised on like raised by parents who gave up their dreams to raise us. And in general, your parents probably didn't give up your dreams to raise you, but my parents certainly did.
In some ways, they were very thrifty.
They decided to live a certain lifestyle.
Yeah.
and deprive themselves of certain things in order to try to give their kids a better life. And the Anne Marie is the kid who was potentially sacrificed to get a better life, and now she's trying to take advantage. So I don't know if it's a generational thing or what, but yeah, it is very weird to hear somebody, and you see this movie characters do this all the time.
Yeah,
I'm doing my best, like, but you're not.
You're not.
Like I don't want to rain on your parade here, but you're really not.
Yeah. Well, and the other, like, I don't know. Penny is 14, so Anne Marie is probably what, like 19 or 20. Like, I get it. You shouldn't have to give up.
Not even, because they say, maybe 19.
Yeah.
Because they say that she dropped out of the youth 3 years ago.
The timeline is a little,
so she was like, 14, 15, she's maybe 18, 19.
But, not in school anymore for whatever.
Yeah.
But and that, like, you shouldn't have to give this stuff up. It sucks that you're in this position. I get it. You can be mad, but you can be mad or you can do your best. These are not the same thing. So I think that also that dovetails with the eating crab food at the gas station.
Oh, sure.
Like, and, who am I to tell someone to eat better? I am not the person to do that.
Yeah. And also, realize that it's not an interesting movie if it literally is a movie about her doing her best, because she wouldn't be surfing.
Right.
If it's a movie about a 19-year-old trying to raise, like, that's a whole different movie, and maybe that can be interesting, but there's no surfing in that movie.
That's Lilo and Stitch, and you notice they had to bring in a whole ass alien for that.
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. People making good choices. It's not very dramatic, and it's really kind of dull. So but that's what me, as I'm old enough to be this girl's mother, when I'm watching this, I'm like, you put that down. You eat a banana.
Yeah, exactly.
You're in Hawaii. I know there's pineapples there. Come on. Need some vitamin C for the stuff. What else was I going to say? Back to the Leslie character. Like, he's there for comic relief, and he's funny, and he has a good rapport with everybody. But I really can't get over the fact that, so we meet him when the three girls they clean the rooms together. They're a team, and they go in, and there's vomit, and it's a messy, and there's condoms and all this other stuff. And Anne Marie just snaps, and she goes out to the beach and is walking around going, who's in 215? Who's in 215? And he's like, oh, me. And she's like, here. And she shows him how to wrap it up and put in the trash, which, as these things go, is really kind of mild.
Yeah.
I thought that I remembered a much bigger scene where she was yelling about something, and she gets fired for this. But he he says something like, I'm on vacation. You don't have to clean when you're on vacation. Like, well, but you kind of have to a little bit, like, just a little. You don't get to puke and leave it on the floor. And then he's just like, oh, good old buddy for the whole rest of the time. And I'm just like, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I mean, just more of the, they needed a comic relief character. They needed a way to introduce this stuff. Yeah. Like, because it would have been easy to make the other lineman dude, who is not a focus, but is constantly there, the one in the room. Yeah. Like, you could have easily just made it that guy.
Yeah.
Instead of the guy who we are supposed to sort of, take a turn on and actually
like sympathize with, but something, and then he's the one in the coconut bra at the end, and but this is me. I'm in my 40s, and I don't like people not cleaning up their messes. I'm a buzzkill. I recognize that. Yeah. But
also, after his NFL career, we know where that guy ends up.
Where?
He ends up managing his Elf's boss.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He ends up managing the toy department. So, didn't take care of his money.
That's
clearly.
True. Yeah, because he was
a few years from now.
Right. Because he's paying $150 for surfing lessons, which you can't do at Gimbals. Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to be a manager at Gimbals in a couple of years.
Yeah. So, I had in my notes, I don't care about this romance. We mentioned that earlier.
No, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, because it's not, whatever the tension is there is not fully realized or taken advantage of, and it takes away from the competition story. And I'm weary of, it's set in Hawaii, and it's the two white people who are having romance, and blah, blah, blah.
It's like he's there to create a conflict, but also help resolve it.
Yeah,
like he creates the conflict between Anne Marie and Eden or whatever, and then it almost looks like she might be abandoning the competition for him, and then in the end he's the one that's like, do what you want to do.
And then she's like, I want this.
Yeah. It's like, it's really like his impact on the movie is basically zero. It's like when people say, what was the Big Bang Theory thing? Indiana Jones is not instrumental to the plot of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, okay.
If he's not there, everything still happens. They get the Ark, they take it to the island, they open it, and everybody dies.
Oh, okay.
Like, nothing changes about the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's like that. Like nothing would change about the arc of this movie. Like she would still end up at the competition if she never met him.
Yeah.
Like it's,
She just wouldn't have him there for the pep talk, maybe. I don't
I guess. Yeah. Which
I do think it's kind of interesting that so all of the other, the trophy wives see her as this essentially local skank, but he sees her as an athlete, I think. Which is an interesting, a nice touch, because he gives her this. She's just had a really terrible run and got pushed down under the wave several times and blah blah. And he comes to see her in the medical tent, and he tells her about the first time he ever got hit in pro football. Someone told him that's the worst you'll ever be hit, and don't quit now. And that works, and she goes back out. I liked, much as I find that character super bland and problematic for many reasons, I like that he respects her as an athlete, and they have that they can connect over.
Yeah, on the one hand, like in the climactic moment where she's deciding whether she's not going to do the competition or not, prior to doing the competition, he says he wants a woman who doesn't need a man to tell her. Like basically, she's like, tell me what to do. About the competition. He's like, I want the girl that I met on the beach the first day that doesn't need a man to tell her what to do. Yeah. Like there's this movie is full of little stuff like that. Like it's kind of pushing a sort of, girl power.
Well, it's very early aughts.
And it's like, it's kind of pushing the natives versus outsiders Hawaiian thing. Like it's kind of pushing the service industry people versus rich snobs, like it's just touching barely on a lot of these subjects, and just sort of it's just kind of stroking them gently and never really like fully committing to any of it.
It's very similar to the Barbie movie, which you have not seen, but I have, and many of our listeners have. And I think a lot of people are seeing that as like this great feminist text. And I'm like, okay, but I've had plenty of women's studies classes.
Yeah.
So no, it's not nearly as eye-opening as you think it is. If you think it's eye-opening, fantastic. Open your eyes and keep opening them. But it's not yet. So similar vibes there.
I think that's a lot of sort of mass marketed stuff like the Barbie movie. It's like
it's got to be watered down a lot.
But on the one hand, if you've never heard some of that stuff before, it feels revolutionary.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, for the people who have, it's kind of eye rolling. So it's like you have to sort of you have to realize, like when you're talking to a broad audience, like you're gonna have to spoon feed them like the easy stuff. You can't be like, like there's only so much that the masses can sort of tolerate.
Yeah, that's true. If the Barbie movie had said all heterosexual relationships are rape, then we would be having a different conversation. Right. It would not have brought in billions and billions of dollars. Back to what you were saying a second ago, the Eden Anne-Marie conflict. Am I seeing things, or is Eden in love with Anne-Marie?
Maybe. I think it seems like that, but it also seems like she is envious of the natural talent that she possesses that she doesn't, and is sort of in awe of her in that sense, which I think could be like is easily mistaken for
That's
love.
true. Yeah. Well, yeah, because it comes up kind of at the same time, the idea that Anne-Marie might squander this and this relationship that Anne-Marie has with Matt. So I could.
But
see
yeah,
that.
I like 100%. I'm on board with that. Sure.
Yeah. Again, more interesting if we explore that, because there's a point where, because Eden's really been pushing Anne-Marie to get out and train and do all this other stuff, and Anne-Marie's blowing it off to go teach Matt to surf and do other things with Matt. But they're out one day, and Eden's got a jet ski, and I guess that's to like get you out to the waves faster. And
because we're shown several times how difficult it is to get out to where you want to surf when the waves are really big.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's taking her out to big waves.
And they have a something, and they're having a fight. And Anne Marie says something like, "At least I have someone who cares about me." And just for a second, it lingers on Eden's face. And I was like, you already did.
Yeah.
Right there.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
nah, but, you know.
Anyway. And there's definitely a version of this movie where like Michelle Rodriguez gets a fiery speech about, you know, I'm watching you squander the natural talent that 100 girls would die to have. And, you know, for a guy with a puffy hair, you know, puffy bangs and, you know, like spiky bangs. And sure, like, yeah, there's a version of this movie where she gets a really good speech. And maybe in that speech,
you've always had someone who cared about you.
Indicates that, there was more to her feelings.
Yeah. But we talked about Michelle Rodriguez has one way to deliver lines. It's also through the gritted teeth. Like maybe that sounds like love coming from her. I don't know.
Maybe.
Let's see. Did we miss anything else on this? I feel like for a movie that honestly is a little bit fluffy, there is a lot of meat here. There's like scraps. It's like a casserole. There's a lot of like starchy pasta, but there's some scraps of meat in there too.
It's like a chicken carcass. Like, you know, this is a reference you get.
Yes.
Like you don't understand how much meat is left and how much usefulness is left on that carcass once you've harvested you think is the good meat. There's a ton of little bits of meat. There's a stock to be made. You know, like it's kind of like that. It's like a chicken carcass. Like it's got just enough to make something out of left on the bones of all these different, like we said, the native Hawaiian stuff, the service industry stuff, you know, the girl power stuff. Like, yeah, it's got just a little bit of meat on each of those bones, just enough to make a thing. But yeah, this movie is like, there's nothing to it. Like it doesn't do. It's trying to be so many things that it doesn't do any of those things fully.
It's very Neutrogena actress doing a face wash ad at the end, you know. But it's a lot of fun to watch. I would be interested to see the point of view of someone who knows something about surfing. But I feel like it would still. My guess is it would hold up because they had so many pro surfers involved in this. At one point, they had just a regular cameraman in the water doing shooting stuff, and he couldn't handle the waves, and the camera was destroyed, and he was hurt and whatever. And so they got someone who was a body surfer, similar to Armageddon. It was easier to teach astronauts to drill, or so they taught a body surfer how to be a cameraman.
Yeah, and it feels like a movie. Right or wrong, it feels like a movie. I don't know if I'm right or wrong about this, but it feels like a movie that was made by people who love surfing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if it was or not, but that's how it reads. Yeah. And sometimes you get that. Like there are, I can't think of the name of the movie, but there's a skateboard movie from the 80s that was clearly made by someone who had never skateboarded before.
Oh, was that Gleaming the Cube?
No. I'm talking about a bad movie. Like some of the like Lords of Dogtown and like Gleaming, like a lot of those movies were at least made by people who who liked skateboarding. Like Endless Summer is for surfing and all that sort of stuff. No, this was a movie from the 80s. I cannot remember. It might be called Radical. Maybe I can't remember. Anyway, but it was clearly made by someone who had never didn't know anything about skateboarding. And there are movies, same thing. There are movies about, you know, wrestling for non-wrestling fans and like, you know, football movies from non-football fans. But this movie seems like a movie that was made by people who really like surfing. And I'm not to say the director loved surfing, but like somebody along the way, or they brought in the right people to advise them.
Yeah. Well, and I think it has a lot of respect for Hawaii as a place too, because you see, I mean, so the beaches and the waves for sure, but there's a lot of shots of the girls driving from their little shack to wherever they're going. And there's this beautiful, you know, 2-lane roads, but lush everywhere. And when I travel, I like to see how regular people live in a place. And that's if I'm in, like when we were in Ireland after we got married, or if I'm in, you know, Indiana, like I just, what's a neighborhood like? What's a grocery store like? What do regular people do? So I appreciate that. Like you get a small sense, not really much, but a little bit of what it's like for regular people living here.
Yeah. And this movie has a really weird like authenticity when it comes to living in Hawaii. Like they're they cross the street a lot. And
Mhm.
when they cross the street, there are cars, and the cars are honking and yelling at them. And there's a scene where Michelle Rodriguez parks a car, and she
Oh, yeah.
just barely dings another car, and an alarm goes off. No purpose. It's not mentioned. It's not a challenge she has to deal with. And now she's got to deal with the angry driver who is yelling at her. She's literally just turns around, and football boyfriend is there. But there's also a portion of that scene where her view is completely blocked by like a dog catcher.
Mhm.
And it feels like they were almost like guerrilla filmmaking in some of these senses, where they were just like out there on these little 2-lane roads of Maui, and just like
I think for a lot of it,
doing stuff.
I think a lot of it they were.
Yeah,
and they were just like, oh, this looks, I mean,
but like in a
there's-
way that is they didn't block stuff off.
Oh, yeah.
And like
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
just literally, because there's scenes where they have to cross the road, and like you can see the actors like looking both ways, and then kind of holding their hands out, and then the person comes by and like honks and yells out the window.
Mhm.
And it's a weird level of like authenticity that reeks of sort of like mid to late 70s guerrilla filmmaking in New York City. And like when you hear about Midnight Cowboy,
Oh.
I'm walking here, that was
Yeah.
like real.
Yeah.
That was
yeah.
that just really happened, and that was ad-libbed.
Mhm.
You know, like it felt like that kind of thing of like this sort of like for a minute it was like, this movie is like this stupid teen like movie is like almost giving me like these sort of guerrilla
Auteur
filmmaking
vibes.
auteur vibes.
Well, I thought that the thing with the car alarm, because it was a car that had a car alarm, which I think in 2002 they were becoming more common, but
Yeah.
still, it was a nice car though. So I
Sure.
thought that was like some commentary on like, oh, whatever,
It's a
this schmo
juxtaposition,
with
sure.
a, yeah.
But then like an easier thing to do there would be for her to hit that car, and then the alarm goes off, and beep beep as the alarm is shut off by football boyfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you know, just like from the perspective of like, but clearly like they shot that on purpose, because they frame up the bumpers
Yeah.
touching,
Yeah.
and then the car alarm. And you know, sometimes filmmakers, directors, they get so obsessed over things. Like it could be that at some point in the footage of the surfing, you could hear a car alarm in the background.
Mm.
And he was like, all right, I got to put a scene in here
Yeah.
that explains why a car alarm is going off in the background in some of our footage.
Oh.
So let me do a quick scene where she bumps a car and a car alarm goes off.
I honestly thought that was just, I mean, it's an opportunity to have that, rich versus poor kind of
Oh, yeah, the juxtaposition.
But also I think it was just a way to be like, it's really tough to find parking.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, because then when boyfriend pulls up, Eden is like, I don't know, wherever you can find a spot.
Yeah.
But that whole thing is just like, other than it announcing the arrival of the boyfriend, which is adequately done in the next scene when she says, hey, here he is.
Hey, look what I found.
It is like, but this movie has a lot of like 1 to 5 minute scenes that you're just like,
What was the point?
this didn't need to be like, this movie could have been a tight 89 minutes.
Yeah.
If you had trimmed all that stuff. Like there's just, they linger too long on someone sitting on a surfboard in the lagoon or whatever. Like they do one too many reruns of someone paddling back out to get another wave, or like it's just there's a lot of stuff. I feel like it's intentional in the way that it's left in, but it's also like, like a modern filmmaker would trim this thing down to like 75 minutes,
Yeah.
or a modern editor, I guess.
I don't know. I think there is, because I think a lot of that stuff that you're talking about was real people who were just there in the background, and they, they kept it in for, authenticity. And there is something that's kind of nice about sort of a shaggy, authentic, not tightened up everywhere consistently kind of thing. I don't.
Oh, sure.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, there is. And that blends into the,
Yeah.
I'm walking here kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's almost like there's a little bit that these shaggy edges are left on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like, is this movie way more like cerebral and like auteurish than I suspect?
I don't think it is.
Probably
I don't think it
not.
is. So, but but there's a lot to like. I mean, like when last week when we were introducing this, I said, "Is this a good movie?" No, and it's not. But there is still a lot of good stuff in it. There's a lot to like. So,
Yeah.
which is why I've seen it several
Is
times.
this a good movie? It's a movie. Like, no one will.
There are elements that are good.
At the end of this movie, you will have watched a movie. And you will not have disliked it, I don't think.
No, I think there's stuff that in the context of 21 years later, it could be a little problematic, but not not super bad.
And I mean, like,
I am welcome to be disputed on that.
Yeah. But I think whether or not you could call some of it into question, I think the intentions were good at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't excuse it, but yeah, like if someone were to ever tell me Blue Crush was their favorite movie, I would have questions.
Why?
The first of which would be, have you seen any other movies?
Right.
Because I think it only takes one okay, now, now Tropic Thunder is my favorite movie, you know, or, whatever, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is my favorite movie now. Like, you just need to see one more movie.
Yeah.
And this movie won't be your favorite movie anymore. But even if you wanted this, if you wanted like this girl power, like I feel like, and of course, none of them are coming to mind right now. I feel like there's better versions of this. If you really wanted like a female empowerment movie to be your top movie.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I want to see the original version of this movie that they were going for that was more closely based on the magazine article. I actually came across that not in the last year or so, and I remember reading it, and I was a little bit underwhelmed because it was nothing like the movie. But it was just like a link that was just all the text. And I think that's something where you need the images to really drive it home. So I will try to find that link again and put it up so people can read that too. So, well, I think we have, to use the chicken carcass metaphor, we have gotten all the meat out of this that we can. Y'all, we would love to know what you think about Blue Crush. Do you also find Matthew Davis, bless his heart, a bland actor and a bland character? I'm sorry if you're his mother, but he can do better. I have faith in him. And did you feel the same about all the Neutrogena face wash actresses in the early aughts? Let me know. We'd love to know what you think about this movie, about anything else, about Hawaii, about the state of hotel workers, whatever. You can get in touch with us a couple different ways. You can send us an email, or you can find us on Facebook or Twitter. Our handle is the same for all three. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. Also on Facebook and Twitter, we post links to our latest episodes. You can find those right there in the feed. We have new episodes every other Wednesday, so 2 weeks from today. And no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode in your queue. And next week, Dave is hosting. What are we watching next week, Dave?
Pretty sure next week is the start of the Spooktacular.
I believe it is.
The third annual.
Yes, we can now say third annual. Yes, so I'm lying. It's not every other Wednesday. It's every Wednesday in October.
For October, and it is. I don't know if we've 100% decided on the order, but it is going to be a Nicolas Cage Halloween. So it's going to be 4 Nicolas Cage horror movies. That will include, but not be limited to, The Wicker Man for certain. So we will be watching the bees,
and we decided we're also doing Renfield, right?
Renfield as well,
which I'm very excited about, honestly.
A couple of mystery movies mixed in there. So so next week will be not Renfield or Wicker Man. It will be something else.
Yeah, so it's Nicolas Cage Creepy Appreciation Month, basically.
The Nicolas Cage Tacular Spooktacular. Third annual.
Yes. All right. Well, folks, we will see you next time with some spooky Nicolas Cage property. TBD. Until then, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.